White House is now saying the administration is working on a meeting between Vladimir Putin and Vladimir Zelensky. How are these negotiations progressing? Plus, the White House is also touting the number of arrests made since the National Guard was sent into our nation's capital and the federalization of D.C. police. How much progress has been made? And finally, Israel is reportedly weighing a ceasefire deal with Hamas after months of negotiating. How will this play out? Welcome to American Sunrise.
If not for this task force and their high level of coordination and the leadership of this president, there would have been 465 more violent criminals on the streets of this capital that you all live in every day. So I think we should all be very grateful.
There's been a tremendous difference. Last night I was walking around near my apartment area, even met National Guardsmen from West Virginia that was deployed here. Carjackings are way down. Robberies are way down. Any type of assault on just crime in general is way down already in the month of August. Even MS-13 gang members being swept up in this.
Ukraine is going to have to forego its ambitions to join NATO and the EU. On the other hand, they're going to have some sort of guarantee, whether it's a mineral rights agreement, some sort of consortium security guarantee, some combination thereof. On the other hand, Putin's going to have to actually recognize, as he has never done, that Ukraine is actually an independent state and that his grand ideological ambition of reconstituting Soviet-era Mother Russia, including Ukraine, Belarus, Georgia, etc., it's not going to happen there.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expected to respond to a proposed truce with Hamas. The U.S.-backed agreement would put an end to the fighting, and Hamas has already reportedly accepted the terms.
In order to get rid of terrorism around the world, and in order to stop these wars, especially in that region, you have to destroy, eliminate, exterminate Hamas and Hezbollah and any type of terrorist organization that's looking to destroy Israel.
President Trump has said that there will be no American boots on the ground, but let me tap into your fighter pilot expertise. Are you expecting that security guarantees could include potentially American air support, be it drones or otherwise?
The president even indicated that that might be the case yesterday. Those aircraft, drones or manned aircraft, could be flying out of already established operational bases in Europe. That means there would be no additional deployment of American troops. And we have a unique advantage in air power in the United States. And I think that that would provide a very unique American way to support European security guarantors who will be on the ground in Ukraine.
A lot of this is also happening because of the threat of tariffs from the Trump administration.
This is one of the best strategies that has ever been done by the Trump administration. This administration has a lot of power right now, Terrence. And the number one thing that they have is the two drug lords in kingpins of Mexico. They have El Chapo Guzman and they have El Mayo Zambada under power. They have a lot of ways to extract information of how the whereabouts and the operandi of the cartels and the organized crime in Mexico. And the threat of a tariff has been one of the most important things that has pushed the Mexican government to basically negotiate. Every time that Donald Trump gives a speech or says something about pressuring Mexico.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
The rising Democratic MAGA movement, you write Democrats needing, quote, their own version of a populist, anti-establishment, MAGA-like makeover. So what does that look like?
What you were just talking about with Gavin Newsom, right? Trying to adopt a lot of the techniques that you saw from Trump that you've seen from MAGA. Get on social media, be a warrior, curse a lot, try to have a lot of edge, insert yourself into the news cycle. The momentum in the party is very much for the very progressive wing, is probably problematic in the off-year elections for Democrats. It's just not where the vast majority of the country seems to be. Watch the next month. If inflation does what I think inflation's going to do, it is going to be deeply, deeply problematic for the Republican Party. Home Depot, your Walmarts and others, they're basically saying, listen, we've absorbed as much of a loss as we can from the tariffs. Come August, we have to start passing that on to consumers.
I'm open to the theory that maybe just Vladimir Putin just has some magic spell over him and anything Vladimir Putin says, he reiterates, laying the groundwork for contesting the election if it goes the way he doesn't like. Prevent those elections from being certified.
The best thing you get in exchange for being a part of NATO is Article 5, the security guarantee that if anybody attacks you, it's like attacking all the other NATO members, and you get to benefit from that.
The headlines: Trump's selective stance on justice, redemption for some, scorn for others. Mr. Trump himself, a felon, they like to point that out, has shown particular leniency to criminals he seems to identify with, people who are white or wealthy or who he believes have been unfairly persecuted or who rioted in his name on January 6th.
This is a president who got his political start by trying to undermine the legitimacy of the first black president. The racism of this man and this candidate is baked into everything that he does. I talked to a lot of officers. He said, look, I have worked a lot of riots in my career, but this is the first riot that I worked where the rioters thought that they were right. They thought that they were the ones that were in charge.
Who stands up for American democracy when it doesn't go the way they want?
They're going to indict a sitting governor of the Federal Reserve, Lisa Cook, for this mortgage fraud. The same thing as Letitia James, I think Pulte, over at Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae. One of them went through the files and came back and referred it to the Justice Department for criminal referral. And methinks that Ed Martin and his weaponization team, and he's all over Letitia James. Ed Martin actually put out a statement yesterday telling Letitia James to resign as Attorney General of New York. And he had essentially said, we're going to indict you and we're going to put you in prison because you're guilty, girl. Lisa Cook looks like the same thing.
Do not believe the spin about what came out on this leaked report. Don't believe that there's any daylight between President Trump and Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy prayed for 20 years to be in the position he's in right now, to have the kind of influence on public policy that he's having. He is fully on board with Donald Trump's agenda. He has no intention of running for president in 2028, despite some of that creative narrative. It's going to become impossible to overcome the narrative of being on the opposite side of childhood cancers, max vaccinations, broad immunity for chemical companies at the expense of American citizens. They can't counter the narrative directly. Nobody can raise their hand and say, hey, I want to get physical education out of the public school system. We want more petroleum-based food dyes, in our food. So what they have to do is they have to try to attack the personality, which is Bobby Kennedy, and say, hey, his agenda is going too far. It's infringing on our freedom of choice, none of which is true. And somebody has to ask the question, how is it that we spend $5 trillion a year on healthcare, and we are the sickest, fattest, most disease-ridden nation in the world? We lead the world in morbid obesity, type 2 diabetes, multiple chronic disease in a single biome, infant mortality, and maternal mortality, and it's becoming very unpopular for politicians to be on the other side of the Maha movement.
The Charlie Kirk Show starts now.
Democrats are trying to find their footing, and it's quite embarrassing, actually. I mean, Gavin Newsom, have you seen what he's doing online and try to turn the ship 180 degrees and they don't know what to do.
Police in Boston will arrest an illegal alien who's a child predator. And ICE will then send what's called a detainer request or a hold request, and we'll say, don't release this person, hand them over to ICE, and we'll remove this child predator from our community. Instead, these sanctuary mayors will order the police department to ignore the federal request to set them free out of the jail, out of the prison, and they will go back into the community, and then they will reoffend. And then ICE has to spend weeks scouring the community.
Following the wreck, investigators with the U.S. DOT gave Singh an English language proficiency test. According to a DOT press release, the driver failed the assessment, providing correct responses to just 2 of 12 verbal questions and only accurately identifying 1 of 4 highway traffic signs.
President Donald Trump's putting teeth into a decades-old federal rule requiring commercial truck drivers to read and speak English. The executive order signed in April mandates that drivers must pass on-the-spot English proficiency tests as a non-negotiable safety standard. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy says the law put in place during the Obama administration has never properly been enforced. The 2-step test requires drivers first respond to authorities sufficiently in English. If the driver passes, but the officer suspects incompetency, Step 2 requires they pass a highway traffic sign assessment.
Now, if you look at the structure that's behind me, it's tall, which makes it very, very difficult to climb, almost impossible. It also goes deep into the ground, which would make it very difficult, if not impossible, to dig under. And today, we are also going to be painting it black. That is specifically at the request of the president, who understands that in the hot temperatures down here, when something is painted black, it gets even warmer, and it will make it even harder for people to climb.
For the person who recently came here, this is your city and you belong. We will say that every day. We will say that in every single language, and we will mean it. And we will put our resources behind it.
This is a person that has a problem with people of color, period. I don't care how many black MAGA out there with their hats. I want to be clear, when we look at who it is that he's kicking out of this country as people of color, when we look at who he always disrespects and says that they are low IQ, even though when you look at his cabinet, this has to be the most incompetent cabinet we have ever had in the history of this country.
The U.S. Attorney General asked for a response by today. So here it is. Stop attacking our cities to hide your administration's failures.
It's long past time for us to impanel a grand jury and make a test case out of Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. She can run her mouth and run her mouth, but we will not put up with a neo-Confederate fractionalization of this nation. She is admitting to harboring illegal aliens. The share of voters registering as Democrats has declined. The remaining voters picked another political party, registered as an independent, or declined to choose a party.
Gavin Newsom, he wants to own Donald Trump. It can't be Donald Trump light. You're screwing up on job one. And job one is helping working Americans and helping the middle class afford their lives and build a life where their children are going to live better than them. That's the American dream, and you have done nothing.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
That was an experimental vaccine. And now we know. Unfortunately, the damage, it's already done. What I admire and deeply admire about Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wants to make sure that the research for mRNA will be only for upper respiratory viruses.
America's Voice Live starts now.
43% of 18 to 39-year-olds that consider themselves liberals also say they've been diagnosed with a mental illness. Nothing new to any of us, of course. They're self-identifying, apparently. Let's see. Gender dysphoria, furries, people dressing, identifying as animals, yelling outbursts, bipolar fits. Maybe a chunk of the 57% are just in denial.
This is a massive poll we put out. It's 2,400 American adults. In the past year, have you sought counseling or mental health treatment from a therapist? And are you currently taking one or more prescription drugs for a mental condition? The number for conservatives is not zero. It's pretty high, too. And everybody over 50, it's much, much, much less. Hardly any 65 and olders. So this is a problem, I think, with current society, is these people launch, they get through their 20s, and then they're like, man, things are really messed up. I need to medicate myself to deal with this.
Gavin Newsom's tweet, hey, genius, the government, federal government, Trump administration, made it political right off the top, Lindy. Already confirmed that this guy meets federal and state immigration requirements. You issued him a work permit. As usual, Trump administration is either lying or clueless. And then the stuff hit the fan because the Homeland Security got in touch with Gavin Newsom. Tricia McLaughlin was on the show yesterday, and she tweeted this immediately. Hey, false. Harjinder Singh is in the United States illegally. His work authorization was rejected under the Trump administration in 2020. It was later approved under the Biden administration in 2021. State of California issues commercial driver's license. There is no national CDL. Sincerely, genius. Mic drop on that for her.
Just today, we saw out of Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker is now paying for everyone's education, including illegal aliens. Why is our money going towards illegal aliens?
This is what Democrats like to do. They take something failing or reviled and give it another name to fool people, to somehow make it more digestible. Sorry, I don't care what you call it. MS is now still a big fat MS no.